All right, so today we'll be starting chapter 9, and chapter 9 is trigonometry, and chapter 9 is the first chapter in module 2 of your pure mathematics unit 1 syllabus. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so I start out by looking at the graph or the graphs of sine, cosine, and tangent. The sine, cosine, and the tangent graph. So just have a look at the graph. Um, so for all three graphs, um, angle is the horizontal axis, and I'm guessing that the sine or cosine or tangent would be the vertical axis. So let's have a quick look at the sine graph. So the sine graph, notice that for the sine graph, one period of the graph, or first of all, the graph is sort of like cyclic, means it repeats itself every 360 degrees. The sine graph occurs, or you could call it the sine wave, is cyclic, and it repeats itself every 360 degrees. All right, so have a quick look at it. So what can I tell from this graph? Well, I can tell that the sine of 0 degrees is 0. So I can see that here. I would have 0 degrees here, and the sine of 0 degrees is 0. So now the sine of 90 degrees is 1. Notice that the maximum value for sine is 1, and the minimum value for sine is -1. The sine of 90 is 1. The sine of 180 degrees is 0. The sine of 270 degrees is -1. And the sine of 360 degrees is 0. All right, so here I have graph of y is equal to sine theta, some facts. So I said it to you earlier, the maximum value for sine theta is 1. The minimum value for sine theta is -1. That the range for sine theta is from -1 to +1. I also told you that the sine of 0 is 0. The sine of, and all of this I can get from the graph. The sine of 90 degrees is 1. The sine of 180 degrees is 0. The sine of -270 degrees is -1. The sine of 360 degrees is 0. What else? The sines of the angles between 0 and 360 degrees is positive. Sorry, 0 and 180 degrees. So between 0 here and 180 degrees, the sine of an angle is positive, and between 180 and 360 degrees, the sine of an angle is negative. All right, so all that I just said, you can get from the graph of sine theta. I hope you can see that for yourself. The sine of 0 is 0. The sine of 90 degrees is 1. The sine of 180 degrees is 0. You'll notice that at 180 degrees, the graph crosses the horizontal axis, indicating that the sine of 180 degrees is 0. The horizontal axis is angles. The vertical axis is sine theta. All right, let's have a look at the cosine. The cosine theta graph, or the graph of cos theta. The graph is also a wave. The graph is also a wave, and the graph repeats itself every 360 degrees. All right, so I think they call that what? The wavelength or the period. It's 360 degrees. Some facts. Now you should be able to just look at the graph and see it, that notice that the cosine of 0 degrees, so you get 0 degrees here. The cosine of 0 degrees is 1. The cosine of 90 degrees is 0. The cosine of 180 degrees is -1. The cosine of 270 degrees is 0. The cosine of 360 degrees is again 1. The maximum value of cosine is -1. The maximum value is 1. The minimum value is -1. Again, the range for the cosine of an angle is between -1 and +1. The cosine of an angle between 0 and 90 and between 270 degrees and 360 degrees is positive. So the cosine of an angle between 0 degrees and 90, between 270 degrees and 360 degrees, any angle within that range, the cosine of the angle is going to be positive. The cosine of an angle between 90 and 270 degrees is negative. The last graph we're going to look at is the graph of tan theta. So that's the top right graph there. All right, so the tangent graph are also periodic. This graph repeats every 180 degrees. So the other graphs repeat every 360 degrees, but the tangent graph repeats every 180 degrees. All right, so look at it. The graph is not continuous. So unlike the sine graph and the cosine graph, which is continuous, the graph of y is equal to tan theta is not continuous. All right, some facts. The tangent of the minimum values of tangent is -infinity. The maximum value of tangent is +infinity. So the range for tangent is -infinity to +infinity. The tangent of 0 is 0. The tangent of 90 is +infinity. The tangent of 180 degrees is 0. The tangent of 270 degrees is -infinity. The tangent of 360 degrees is 0. So these are facts, or you need to be able to at least have a mental image of these graphs. You need to be able to sketch them at will, and you need to, whenever you're asked some things about sine, cosine, or tangent, you need to be able to mentally picture this graph.